Good evening there, Lorain. I guess it is evening now. It's 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? Hope you guys enjoyed your Friday. It's now Friday, so you guys are probably going to go out and have a good time tonight. So I wanted to get my podcast in a little bit early. Tonight I'm doing one is basically a recap of events. I have renewed my calls for an investigation into Mr. McCann in regards to what he did. And while I know I'm going to hear from people at the sheriff's department and whatnot that are going to say, hey, like, we need time. Time is of the essence when it comes to dealing with what I'm dealing with. Well, I get you have to take time to investigate all this other criminality going on in Lorain, and maybe even have to take time to investigate the chief on his time card fraud issues that other officers seem to think he has. But in regards to my case, I'm renewing the request because, the suit's coming, like, soon, in regards to him and that whole scenario, because we're running out of time. I waited long enough for an apology. So apology is passed. Now we're on to actually action. And so, my attorney is notified the district attorney that they need to be looking into this. And that's why, we're asking in my settlement for the county to do a certain type of settlement because we don't want them to exclude all claims. And I believe I have a good one. I've always believed I have a good one. I didn't want to go this route, but apparently no one wants to let me even work part-time around here. So I got plenty of time on my hands now. Man, I don't know what's going on here. Get that inhaler, but so anyway, at this point, the way everyone has been acting and the lack of response that I receive from people, I pretty much stepped it up, and I don't know what else to do at this point. So I'm going to do this podcast tonight. We're going to really get into what happened with me, with McCann, with the police department, get it out there once and for all as an official podcast for Lorain Politics Unplugged, and I have a little script I've already set up. So we're going to go through it. We're going to get it all out there. We're going to discuss what's going on, and, and then it'll be out here for posterity's sake and people can review it. I've contacted Mike Mason and Noel down at Channel 19 News and given them the story. And it's time, folks. Like, I'm done being the scapegoat for everyone and for all their problems. So here we go. So welcome to Lorain City Politics Unplugged. This is the podcast where we dive deep into the issues and stories shaping our community. Now, I'm your host, Aaron Knapp, and today we're going to be tackling a significant and concerning situation involving allegations of harassment and misconduct leveled against the Lorain City Police Chief and a high-ranking official within the juvenile court systems. Our discussion today is going to be based on a detailed account that I have submitted to the prosecuting attorney, requesting a review for possible prosecution of the Lorain City Police Chief, James McCann, and Juvenile Court Administrator, Tim Weitzel. It's important to note that this podcast will primarily present my account of events and the allegations that I have made. And we're going to unfold the story chronologically, drawing directly from the evidence that I've provided through emails and stuff. And so we're going to begin at the point where my interactions with Chief McCann first began to raise concerns. So my initial interaction with McCann at the Lorain City Police Department revolved around a civil rights violation that occurred August 4th of 2021. I allege that, one of the chief's officers denied me entry into this rocking on the river with my service animal. And it was all in regards to a secondary guy that used to work for the police that decided my dog wasn't a service animal and that shouldn't be allowed in. And so the police guy went with it. And so I got in this conversation with them about it on the rocking on the river. So I received an email from McCann, later after that. And I'm going to read a portion of the email here. Basically, McCann's like, well, good morning. I spoke with Sergeant Morris, this is how long ago it was, about your phone call. He gave you some direction on how to proceed, and according to him, you were unwilling to listen. I will not go back and forth with you via email or on the phone for the sake of the closure and for me to understand your complaint. Please take some time to send me an email detailing everything. Once I receive that, I will review it and determine if follow-up is necessary with our IA department. I take all complaints seriously, but understand I can't be involved in every aspect of this department or I wouldn't need a command staff. Please take your time and send me a well-written email detailing your complaint and include the date and time and officers' names if you know them. Take care. That was great. I liked that initial contact. I emphasize the chief's comment and statement that I cannot be involved in every aspect of the department or I would not need a command staff. This is crucial in establishing a motive and intent for the story progress. And so, when we got to that point, the way I saw it, he had been pretty cool, but he's like, hey, I need a command staff. That's why I can't just be responding. Awesome. I liked his initial response of take your time, write a response. That's everything I would have expected from a chief of police. I wish it stayed that way. Now, I think about this initial reaction. I'm a citizen with a service animal. Allegedly, I'm being denied access, and the chief's response indicating a need to delegate. Now, how might this initial communication set the tone for future interactions? Well, fast forward to around March 21st of 2023, I made contact with Chief McCann again, as well as Lorain Mayor Jack Bradley and others via email. And in this communication, I was criticizing the Lorain Police Department's decision to shut down comments on the Lorain City Facebook pages, the police pages, and their handling of an incident at West 27th Street, which I kind of felt was inappropriate. And that email went like way viral. Everyone knows about it. It was the Hildreth incident. It's really what started everything on the negative path for me, because I just saw this and I was like, ew, this is a bad look. And it didn't end well for me any more than it ended well for them. She ended up getting charged with obstruction of justice for refusing to let them, remove her kids from inside the house. She consented to an interview. They posted it all online, and that's how I got a hold of it. And so Chief McCann responded back then, and he said something. I'm going to read some excerpts from that email. So he's like, LPD cannot react to an incident on social media until we properly investigate that incident, or we would be accused of being reckless. As chief, I am well aware that a government agency operating a government social media page is subjected to legal and constitutional constraints with regards to page management. That this is not, nor will it ever be, an issue for me. What is at issue is that the public is under no obligation to post honest and informed content. Again, this is not an issue for me. However, harm to the reputation and in extreme cases, physical well-being of Lorain Police and City of Lorain employees, as well as the organizations themselves, can and has resulted from misinformation and inaccurate posts on these social media pages. Speaking of himself, Mr. McCann, I've personally been the recipient of threats against myself, my family, and my property. Though I am confident in my abilities to protect myself and my family, I am not okay with the LPD social media accounts being used to convey these communications or to spread the misinformation via public comment that serves as a basis for these threats. To be clear, I am willing to I am willing and ready to stand in front of a federal judge and to state my case. That was part of his email response. And then he goes on to say, at this time, we have not been able to find any case law that specifically addresses the issue concerning our social media account and the actions that we took to calm things down during our administrative investigation. There is, however, specific case law that does address deleting an individual's comments and or deleting or blocking an individual. If you have specific case law that deals with the LPD social media management decisions, I would be happy to review it. Additionally, courts have stated that as has the ACLU, that off-topic comments can be removed from a post. In other words, if there is a post about a basketball game, a comment that talks about a football game can be deleted. This, of course, is very time consuming. Now, despite the chief's claim of being well aware of social media policies, he did request that I provide case law, which in subsequent emails, I did just do that, right? I also expressed a concern over the chief sharing information about receiving death threats, right? Why is he telling me that? What am I going to do? Stating that this should have been, an ongoing investigation that I shouldn't have been privy to. They're always so quick to cite clears, but in this one, they were like, oh, yeah, people from out of state have made death threats against me online. Dude, I said then, and I'll say it now, I told the chief he should call the police because that death threats across federal lines is a crime. He should have called the sheriff and reported it, but he didn't. Instead, he used it to me to try and make me feel sorry for him. And the other thing I wanted to point out was in that he's specifically only talking about protecting, let me find it here real quick where it says, he says, however, harm to the reputation and in extreme cases, physical well-being of Lorain police and city employees, as well as the organizations themselves, can and has resulted from the misinformation and the inaccurate posts of these social media pages. And then he goes down, I'm looking at this and I'm like, so what about the people? What about our rights? What about our rights to knowledge, to be informed, to be an informed, governance, to be informed by our governments and government, to be able to address and redress and educate and instruct our government? Like, that's all I just don't understand. He believes that LPD is more important than the people and their reputation and whatnot, which goes to just confirm that the police aren't here to protect us. They're here to enforce the law. That's constitutional. That's in the Supreme Court's decided that. They hold no obligation to us to make sure that, that they're protecting us, so to speak. And so, but he's right when he talks about the ACLU stuff. And when I responded, I expressed concerns over him sharing the information, and then I went on to talk about the complexities. Just consider the complexities of managing a government agency's social media presence. So, how do you balance freedom of speech with the need to control misinformation and protect employees? Like, what are your thoughts on the chief sharing information about threats he received in this context? And the way I saw it was, for me, I look at it from a point of, what can I do with that knowledge? And if you're sharing it with me, in my opinion, you're almost inciting panic because, like, I'm not going to be able to do anything about that offhand for you, right? And so if you're saying it's going to incite panic, I mean, if you're saying things like that, like, well, the chief of police is scared. Like, well, what does that say for me, average Joe? And again, he says clears on everything. I mean, they're claiming clears on an investigation into brain over ribs from like 2 years ago. It doesn't even apply anymore, but he gives me this. And so when I met with the mayor about that, the mayor even got offended because I said same thing. Like, maybe I am a little neurodivergent and I just say facts. But honestly, why are you telling me this? And I said the same thing to the mayor. Why is he sharing this with me? I think he should call. He said you should call the police. It's like, yeah, he should. He can't handle his own report, so he has to get someone else to do it for him. If someone made death threats, he needs to make sure and follow up with that. Mayor didn't find that very helpful either. Apparently nobody finds, that kind of stuff helpful. Well, I'm not the one doing it. So I'm not the one saying it. I'm not the one that needs a citizen to educate them on the law. So I did send them all of the information in an email, right? Like, I sent them all the case law. I played devil's advocate. I gave them everything they possibly could want to know about case law on keeping the Facebook page open. And in the end, they chose to take it down, which is what I always suggested they do, right? I always said from the get-go, take it down because that's the only legal option you have. What else you're doing here when you block these comments? Now, when they took it down, though, they were supposed to leave up all the previous comments, which they didn't. So I mean, again, that's why there's so much fraud in social media. That's why I've said multiple times, when I get elected, my social media page will not allow comments. Okay, from the start, it will be a government information page only. You want to address me, I need you to call me or email me so that I can be your voice. Right? It's not about what I do or want if I'm elected. It's about what you want. Right? I don't make the decisions, you do. It's not up to me, it's up to you. And so I look at it that way. And I've been educated on this now. I looked at all the rules and the laws. Rich Resendez taught me an important lesson, that until you're elected, your page is your page. So even on his page, when he blocked me, it was legal. So I didn't feel any qualms about blocking certain people who weren't in my ward from my political page, because I'd already been educated by Rich. He figured it out, or someone that works with him figured it out, because then I looked it up and it was right. You can block people when you're not in office yet. Your political page, as long as you're not doing government business on it, or if you're currently in government. So I did. And that was a great learning lesson. When Jack was running for office and we were talking about social media, I suggested to him that he delete the Lorain Sheriff's Department social media page. And again, look, I'll come at everybody because that's what I do, right? I'm the scorpion on the duck's back. But when it comes to Jack Hall, he's a no-nonsense guy. I don't particularly want to deal with his people, but for him, like, he's a no-nonsense guy. I said, shut that Facebook page down, right? Don't follow the same trap. And he said, no, we're better than that. We'll set the policy, we'll set the standard, and we'll be the standard for great social media. And he's done just that. Like, I don't knock the guy. The guy's done every damn thing he said he was going to do, and he's doing it in the first 2 to 3 months of his time in office. And I get it. My little beef right now is not something that's on anyone's radar, but my time is running out. So it's on my radar. Statute of limitations matters. So you want to investigate him on the time card fraud on your own time. That's your business, because you have from the date of discovery of the crime, I'm assuming, at least. I do not. We're going back 23, 22. So, that's all I'm saying. So, but Jack, he squared that social media policy away right off the bat. Like, the man is playing 3D chess while the rest of us are playing checkers. And I know he's steps ahead of me. But that's okay, because he's supposed to be. I mean, the man's got a degree in psychology. He's highly intelligent, highly motivated. And, again, I do what I do because it's what I do, folks. So when people talk to me about things and I have conversations with them and they ask, why would you so-called bite the hand that feeds you? Well, I don't want it to be a hand that feeds me. I want there to be a mutual respect. I want him to respect me because I call him out. I want people to respect me because not only do I call them out, but I'll call me out. Everyone says this on the page. Oh, you just, you attack anyone that disagrees with you. No, attack. What does that word mean? Attack. Do I come to your house? Do I see you in public and come up to you in the grocery store like Lori and yell at you? No. Do I go to your places of business and call your places of business? No. Keep it in the Facebook realm, right? That's where we were all at. Just like with James. It was fine and dandy when it was just emails between two guys, two veterans, emailing each other back and forth. But then he decided to be a prick and make it personal and write my board. That's the difference. I was only dealing with him. He was the chief of police. Then he started talking to the courts. That's the difference. Even with Bober, I was dealing with him. Now, if I'm to believe that he wasn't the one that called my work, fine, whatever. It sure doesn't look like it by the way everyone reacted and the way that There's no reason everyone backtracks like that, and Aiden backtracks like that, and everyone backtracks like that if they didn't realize it was about to cause a stir. So anyway, just wanted to get all that out there. Like, and this could have always been ended with an apology. But so now here we are. Jack, he kept his social media. James took his down. Other police departments still have theirs up. Lorain PD is the only one without a social media page because it was too hard. Now, let's see. Moving forward to April 10th, 2023, I received another email, and this one is in response to Chief McCann regarding a complaint about someone contacting my employer. And he wrote back, if someone called your place of employment in their official capacity from the Lorain Police Department, they were not authorized to make any such phone call or notification. If you have proof of this accusation and a name of an employee, please forward that to me and it will be investigated. If it can be determined that a member of the police department in their official capacity called your employer, I will address it. You filed your complaint with the U.S. Attorney's Office, not with the LPD, Lorain Police Department, he wrote. The matter is in their hands. Now, yeah, I did. But it turned out it was James that is the one contacting my employer, so how could I? Like, I thought that was serendipitous because it turned out that one time when I did email him, he was right. Like, my boss, I think, had said something to me like, she's like, no, through the grapevine, it got back to me that you were, So I don't know that I couldn't prove it was anyone from the police department that time. But then I messaged James about it, or the police, and then he responded back with, well, hey, if you can prove that, let us know. And then right after that, seeing that it bothered me, he contacted my employer and he contacted my board. And if you look at the date, after he wrote that letter, May 8th, or before May 8th, whenever that was in 23, he made the complaint. And so then on May 8th of 23, I received further response from him. And he says, well, first I will address your email from May 7th of 23 at 0800 hours. I feel the need to help you understand what a public record actually is. According to the Ohio Revised Code, a public record means any document, regardless of physical form, including an electronic record, created or received by or coming under the jurisdiction of any public office which serves to document the activities of the office. You have not asked for any public records in this email, your email. You have asked for legal advice, which we do not give. Your question should be directed to your attorney. Second, I will address your complaint filed May 8th, 2023. There is no violation of the law, and we are within our rights to release the information. The complaint will not be investigated. It is your right to file suits, but I would strongly suggest you speak to your attorney and ask him to explain the consequences of filing frivolous lawsuits and the potential repercussions that can come from them. No one here believes a simple forwarded email with no additional comment is a public record, but I will also include one that as a PDF. And so it is a public record, we later discovered. And that's why I laughed. He's like, oh, nobody here believes that, but it is. I addressed that in my podcast last night about public records, if you recall correctly. If you're following along for the record, you would have seen that in last night's podcast, episode 11, where I strongly discussed the fact that one email, one attachment actually is a public record, folks. That's right. So, the definition of a public record and the police department's stance on releasing information are key here. What constitutes a public record in your understanding, guys? How should law enforcement agencies handle requests for information from the public? Well, on June 4th, 2023, Chief McCann sent an email to me, and he copied AJ Mathewson on it. And he was addressing some concerns I had raised regarding access to City Hall. Chief McCann stated that the Lorain Police Department is not in charge of the City Hall procedures, security procedures, and that video evidence from an active investigation is not public record until the investigation is complete. That's important too, because that's true. Till it's complete, then clears no longer applies. He also has clarified that the 30-day deadline for investigations is an internal goal and it may be extended. That was from his words because he had it on there. I was asking for an investigation into Lieutenant Swanger, our dog catcher, and the accident that took place that day going into City Hall. Now, I want to highlight the importance. You know what? I want to highlight the importance of that statement, and the administrative investigation was ongoing and not a public record until completed. And so, as such, it's very important because later this was sent to a civilian via email before the investigation was concluded. So, give me 1 second here. I'm going to pause this and let the dog out, and I will be right back. Let's go. I hear you. Okay. Sorry about that. When she wants to go, she wants to go. So as I was saying, it was later sent to a civilian. That civilian happened to be Tim Weitzel, and it was done before the investigation was concluded. You know, he was like, "Keep it close to the vest, Tim." Law enforcement speak for don't share it, but Tim didn't understand the law enforcement speak, and he shared it. So consider the implications of sharing information released in an ongoing investigation. What are the potential risks and ethical considerations involved? Now, my account will, it goes on to detail the incident around late May 23, where Chief McCann allegedly filed a complaint. Now, he didn't allegedly. He was the one that filed the complaint against me because they asked, like, what did you do to make a chief of police so angry that he figured out we had a board in social work and then called us or wrote and made a complaint? And so they asked questions in it. So it was clear it was him because it was stuff that I had said or talked about with him. So he went after my state license. Now, he basically, he said it was because I signed my emails with LSW, and then I stated in a May 9th communication that I was an officer of the court. Now, he felt it was inappropriate that I did that. And so I'm just going to go on the record as saying, if you go back and look later, the court's own website said guardian ad litems were officers of the court. No one ever bothered to read that, which is why I stated it. And layman's terms, law terms, officer of the court also means anyone that's well aware of the laws of the court that's required to follow them. So anyone that works in the court is an officer of the court. Anyone that has knowledge of the laws of the court is an officer of the court, not a court officer. A court officer is someone that works in the court that is like, for example, the guy that, all this was shared with, he's a court officer, Tim Weitzel. He holds a different standard than an officer of the court. An officer of the court is bound ethically to report certain things, but a court officer is bound legally to do certain things properly. That's the way that works. So we're going to look at, he got mad because I wrote those things in an email. Basically, I signed my name with that. That was it. That was it. That was what he had. That's what Big Bad McCann had. Coast Guard extraordinaire went and said that. And so when I responded, and then they asked me, they said, well, don't you have your LSW? And I was like, yeah. Well, and are you a GAL? And I was like, yeah. So you are an officer of the court? Yeah. But that's it. That's what he was mad about. I want you guys to let that sink in. He used color of law and strong-armed me, just like he tried to do to Mercy, just like he's done to everyone along the way. This is why no one goes after him. This is why I've been saying all along, I'm saying he committed a felony out loud to everyone and no one does anything. I provided multiple instances of it, and everyone ignores me. So as soon as my attorney gets better, I'm going to go make the affidavit on the record, and then we're just going to get it turned in, and I'll charge him because I can't seem to get even a sheriff's deputy to take my report of it so I can use that report to go to the judge or the magistrate. I'm just going to have to go swear an affidavit and get it over with. And so we'll do that because this has gone on long enough. This charade has got to end at some point, and I'm tired of it. So, win, lose, or draw, I want my day in court. Because this was a screw job from the start. And now I got friends in California that are like, oh, drama this, drama that. I get it. But this is going to come to an end one way or the other, and it needs to. And so I felt it was inappropriate to continue contact. So I sent him several emails asking him to cease all communications. On June 21st, 2023, I sent the following email, and I'm going to read it. It said, regarding, I said, please, I will ask you once again not to email me. If you wish to communicate with me, I'd appreciate it if you would just place said communication into writing and mail it to me. I'm not sure why my request of records would be subject to a response from the chief. If you are referring to the state investigation into my license, I see no law preventing me from having that email, as you are not the agency and you did send it. But if you wish to hold off until the board is done, by all means do so. As Captain Mathewson reviewed these policies with me and read them to me over the phone, the department obviously received the memo on security. Therefore, it's part of an internal records that was sent to me via email. At least 2 separate captains read it to me verbatim. So I'm not sure why you're being so secretive about all this stuff. But in the future, if you have to email me, I would please request that you have Captain Mathewson respond. He has been respectful and responsive, and I really think it's a very bad idea for both of us to have continued conversations. So please let the officers do their jobs and respond to me. I'm trying to follow the appropriate procedures here that requires I send my emails to these appropriate people. You make it all a wonderful day as well, Aaron Christopher Knapp. Make it a wonderful day as well. And I said that because he used my motto at the end of his when he responded to me initially, was make it a wonderful day, because he thought it was going to hurt my feelings. And I was like, no, I love that he uses that. And then McCann responded with, Mr. Knapp, thank you for your response. Email is my chosen form of communication to reply to you, and all public information requests I receive from everyone. So this is what you get. You get the response from me because your requests are not the type of requests that our records employees handle, and I will be the only one to respond to all requests from now on. Our records employees do not have access to email records, video, or other administrative files, so the requests are all forwarded to my office. It's great that Captain Mathewson reviewed the City Hall policy with you. However, that policy is not ours to release to the public. The policy was issued by Safety Service Director, and that's whom you need to request it from. If we were trying to be secretive about the policy, I wouldn't have told you where to request it from. Finally, you don't get to demand who to talk to at the LPD, Lorain PD. I get to make those decisions, so I will be the only one communicating with you from this department in the future. Have a great day, he says, exclamation point. I point back to the Chief McCann's earlier statement about not being involved in every aspect of the department. His words, not mine. And I would question why the designated contact point, Captain Mathewson, was suddenly changed. I emphasize that I explicitly asked the chief to stop emailing me, which I allege the chief refused to do. And I will cite Ohio Revised Code 2917.21, telecommunications harassment, highlighting the part that states knowingly making a telecommunication to someone who has previously told the caller not to make such communication. I would argue that the chief's response on June 21st was the first offense, and subsequent emails in August constitute further offenses, potentially felonies. I mean, all he had to do was stop emailing me. I begged him. Right. So this exchange raises significant questions about the communication between public officials and citizens. When a citizen requests a specific form of communication and asks for contact to cease, what are the obligations of a public official? Let's, consider the ramifications of that. Because a government official is to be directed by you. They're your employee. So if I'm telling you to stop communicating with me, what right to you as a government official do you have to continue that in any way, shape, or form? If anything, I feel like you're more accountable than, say, somebody else, right? You're more accountable than anyone else because you work for us. So you got to look at the power dynamics at play here. And when he's telling me that I will speak to no one but him, I have lost all ability to get any sort of law enforcement assistance in Lorain. I won't call them anymore. He holds the full weight of the police department behind him. Everyone can be mad at me all they want, but the proof is in the pudding. It's in his own emails. It's in the fact that he continues to get away with this stuff and no one cares. So my account then will shift now to the issue of protected public information, the Lorain Police website. Now, I'm claiming that a juvenile court documents and pictures of juveniles that were not subject to arrest were being posted online. They still are. They're on the Lorain Police website. You can go there and see them, and they're online for everyone to see. And they weren't arrested. They're being posted online, along with teachers' names and other protected FERPA documents. Despite the fact that I've reported this to various individuals, including the mayor, the chief, the superintendent, Jeff Graham, and he has said that, Riley has given an excuse that the police or Levesque or someone has said that the police aren't subject to FERPA. And I've argued with them that the police is still their covered entity under FERPA. And so they're investigating that right now, which I guarantee you they'll find out I'm right. You can't post juvenile pictures not subject to arrest online simply because you want to punish their mom. Despite reporting this to all those people, I allege that the information has still remained online, and I expressed my concern, asking why my child's information wouldn't be shared if the chief believes he has a right to share others' protected information. Just think about that. He's willing to just send our stuff to anyone. And he has. He's done it with mine. So the balance of between transparency and the protection of these sensitive personal information, especially concerning juveniles, what are these ethical and legal responsibilities of law enforcement agencies in this regard? I feel like they hold a higher standard, just like I do, to protect this information from people. And so, I went into a detailed critical event where James submitted over 61 pages of emails, complaints, confidential administrative screens of screens that he took pictures of with his phone, my child's name and information, other sensitive information and then sent it via unsecured, unredacted email to Tim Weitzel, the juvenile court administrator, a civilian and a licensed independent social worker. What purpose did that serve? And we go back to that original statement where he said, let me know who at LPD called your work. It was you, James. You did. So on July 12th of 23, now, mind you, I've asked for these emails from the city side of Lorain and text messages, and James continues to deny that they even exist, as I'm reading this wrong, that they don't exist. He writes on July 12th, 2023 to Weitzel, and he says, so, Tim, keep this close to the vest, as this is still under investigation. Now I question why a civilian like Tim Weitzel, the juvenile court administrator, would receive such a sensitive documents from the chief of police, especially with the instruction to keep it confidential due to an ongoing investigation. Now, I argue the action was illegal, as it contained witness information and my own personal information. And which I still claim is protected under the law, doing me to being a social worker with the juvenile justice system at the time. Now, I cite Ohio Revised Code Section 149.43 regarding the availability of public records, highlighting exemptions for confidential law enforcement investigatory records and personal information. I also allege that this action constitutes retaliation under Ohio Revised Code Section 2921.05, as well as a continuation of the telecommunications harassment by inciting another person to harass me in Tim Weitzel. I mean, guys, think about that. So Tim Weitzel, a guy I didn't even know, until I door checked him one day because he tried to come in Crossroads and he didn't have his badge on. I didn't know who he was. And he's like, well, I run this whole thing. And I was like, I still got to see your badge. And then someone came and vouched for him. But, that was the way they were doing things at the court, loosey-goosey. One door in the Juvenile Justice Center doesn't work. Employees just bleeding left and right. When I went to my job after that, I met people that said that they were given promises by Weitzel about how great it was going to be, and then they just got crapped on the entire time they were there. So they left and they went elsewhere. They went to another job that pretty much crapped on them, which I'm just like, I see a pattern here. But Tim Weitzel, licensed independent social worker, juvenile justice court administrator, is given confidential law enforcement investigatory records that don't apply to juveniles, that apply to me. Now, mind you, he's not my boss. But if he was, and even as an LISW, he holds a responsibility to me as an LSW to educate me instead of crucifying me on behalf of the chief of police. But I mean, regardless, it's still all fruits of the forbidden tree. He should have never had any of the information to begin with. And since none of it was criminal and I was never charged with a crime, it was just complaints I made, honestly, James had no right to share any of it because I wasn't subject to anything. I mean, it's just, it blows my mind that they let this fly. Now, I just need you to understand that, a significant part in the narrative is this. I mean, this is a significant part of this whole narrative. So consider the implications of a police chief sharing such a large amount of sensitive, unredacted information with non-law enforcement individuals. What potential harm could this cause? What are the legal ramifications? I just had to go and use ChatGPT and to write a response to Sheffield Lake about them denying me body cam footage, saying it shows the face of an uncharged suspect, Mayor Brain, which he's the subject of the investigation. It's the only person it could be. So, like, why are you guys trying to hide it from me? But that being said, they're trying to block that out. They tried to block and redact all his information, and he was an uncharged suspect. Yet, McCann can just send everything of mine unredacted to Weitzel. Everything, including my kids' information. And so my account alleges that Tim Weitzel did not keep it close to his vest as McCann told him to because he's got loose lips. And shortly after receiving the emails, Weitzel terminated my ability to contract with the Lorain court, citing misrepresenting the court. The same reason that, guess who, Chief McCann allegedly used in the complaint against my social work license. I also claim that Weitzel shared this information with other court employees and instructed them not to speak to me or allow me to volunteer. Tim Green from Voices of Children should understand that as well. Because then he said, hey, like, for the reasons cited why you can't contract with the court, you can't do this. And I said, that's interesting. Why would you be aware of any of that? Well, yeah, exactly. He shared my employment information with the volunteer organization at the courts. Tim Green. Tim Weitzel shared with Tim Green. Then Tim Green regurgitated that to me. And then they all tried to argue with me about whether I was an officer of the court or not. And they've changed their website since then. But their website said that guardian ad litems weren't sworn in were officers of the court. They just didn't bother to read it. And I caught Emily up in that when the court lawyers, yeah, you should have read your own websites. God, you guys are just inept. Like, I wish it was harder to actually prove you wrong always, because it just means that we've let some people get in office who have gotten really, 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 really lazy and lackadaisical in their education. That you guys don't even stay up with your own rules and regulations. And the fact that you would fire a social worker from working with juvenile justice because he said he was an officer of the court when he was is the most ridiculous bass-ackwards thing I've ever heard in my life. And to top it off, you gave me back my position with the courts as a guardian ad litem after that, and I had to resign it only because I had to go to another area. I got you. So the same reason, so basically that was just bad. And it basically I contend these actions were based on potentially illegal obtained evidence and constitute further harassment and conspiracy to commit. Now, I emphasize my qualifications as a guardian ad litem volunteer, including the required training and background checks that I did, and note that guardian ad litem volunteers are recognized as officers of the court. I mentioned that the social worker board found I acted ethically, okay, appropriately. And the Ohio Department of Unemployment found I acted appropriately as a whistleblower. So unemployment gave me my unemployment. I did subtract that from the damages that potential wages when I calculated out the amount for my pending suit. But yeah, you cost me $12,800, and that's subtracting what I got for unemployment, which I did get because Applewood tried to bribe me and say they were going to pay me a set amount, 1 month's salary, if I signed an NDA, which I completely refused. Said, nah, I don't want that. I'm not going down for these people. I'd rather just not be a practicing therapist if this is how other therapists, LISWs and LSWs, are going to treat other LSWs. They're going to get in bed with their agencies, which is the number one thing they tell you not to do when you're in school, is worry about your license, not your job. Well, I've done that, and it just seems like none of the jobs like to deal with that. So I have to set this standard of ethical behavior for all social workers, apparently, and it's really starting to get tedious. And so maybe it's just better I run for office, win that seat, and worry about that. Maybe I can make my change there. Because social workers don't have to be therapists. We're change agents. And I change agent in a really different way. But the bottom line is that think about the role of guardian ad litem and the trust placed in these volunteers. What are the potential consequences that such an action on me and the children that I serve? What does it mean for the integrity of the juvenile court system if these allegations are true? Now, I just, really want to say that in the end, I do want to file criminal charges against McCann for harassment and acting outside the color of law, and against Tim Weitzel for acting on the information he received and continuing the alleged harassment. I believe these actions by individuals and public servants are illegal and counterintuitive. So it's been a deeply concerning account of the events, and it raises serious questions about conduct of public officials in our community. I encourage you to reflect on this information presented today, and the role of the prosecuting attorney will be crucial in reviewing this account and determining the next steps. And so, I'm going to finish up here for the last, 13 minutes or so or less with some final thoughts. There's going to be some people out there that are going to be unhappy with me, not just on the side of prosecuting this, but the people that are being, accused, but on the people that people think I should be friendly with in regards to the agencies that may or may not help me with this. And listen, if my justice depends on my friendship with people, then it's really seeking the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing and giving the wrong answer to what I want to say. So I want to point out that I want this done the right way. But I'm not going to treat this any differently than I treated any other thing in my life. I'm going to attack it head on, and I'm going to drive forward until I get the results that I deem fit. Now, for those that say, I have this or I have that or I'm this or that, guess what? My methods have worked. The change that I've wanted to make has been happening. This is the one big hurdle right here. This guy, he abused his position, and he's abused it more than I care to account. He's treated people poorly, and he sets the standard as the highest paid law enforcement individual in this county, in this city, in this area, at, bringing in $230,000, and I couldn't get a little bit more educated or better response from him. I mean, for a guy with a 1.66 GPA, I have his personnel file. Good for you. You floated around, the Gulf of America, aka Gulf of Mexico. Yay. But dude, you had a 1.66 GPA. You're doing quite well for yourself. So instead of spending that time being a happy human being. You decided to spend that time attacking a local social worker and making his life a living hell, all because he made a few complaints against some officers. And I just want to point out that some of those officers were actually officers that were ones that got fired later. So Tabitha was the lieutenant in charge of one of the complaints, and the officers that were disrespectful to me was the one that she was sleeping with. And so that complaint was legit. Another complaint I made, they chastised the officer for not activating his body camera. I mean, my complaints weren't unfounded. They were minor, like, interaction complaints that could have easily been dealt with. But instead, McCann decided to take them to the next level and weaponize them against me as a social worker, which is exactly what he tried to do at Mercy. Only difference is Mercy had lawyers and they stood up for their person. Applewood did not do that for me. Applewood backed down, gave in to the courts. The courts gave in. I mean, again, I've said it. I'll point out. I'm outside renounce, denounce. I'm talking to Judge Sherry Glass. She looks right at me and says, secondhand again, but we're talking about it right across from the police department. And she can depose me, say I'm a liar. That man wants to blame everyone for his problems but himself. Now we got to fire somebody because he came down and complained to the courts. When you don't realize the guy you got to fire is the guy you're telling. I got back to the office at Crossroads and I got a call from Michelle that said, leave the building. And so there we were. Go ahead. And so, I loose lips sink ships. The same judge that told me that my daughter was in the right place after I won full custody of her, after she sent her back to Utah to be abused. I mean, hey, you guys play whatever games you want. I like her. I'm friendly with her. It doesn't change these interactions. It doesn't change any of my interactions with any of these people. I love, the people as human beings, but if you're in an official position and you hold that position, you, just like me, are held to a different ethical standard. So if you guys are going to come after my job everywhere I go and try and prevent me from getting government jobs because you are, doing your own dismal things with people, that's on you. You're not going to do that to me. I'm not that guy. In fact, this is the ultimate problem. Like, you're giving me an opportunity to sacrifice my career opportunities for the greater good of everyone. That being a martyr as a social worker, like, yay for me. Like, just this story alone is going to be a great book. At one point, I'm going to sit down and write a book. It's going to be great. It's going to be really great. I just want to see it, everybody out there. Like, we've got some really great people working on it. They're going to be over here. I've got these people over here ghostwriting, and these people over here interviewing, and these people over here investigating. And we're all going to do what we're going to do, and it's going to be amazing. Amazing over here, amazing over there. I'm just saying, amazing. Guys, I've been trying to play nice for everyone says, oh, it's your delivery. Hey man, sadly enough, I have been playing nice. I wasn't going to file the suit. But now I strongly suggest that you law enforcement people step up your investigation before the civil suit comes and before the news cameras come. Because, let's just be honest. I elected those people because the other people weren't doing this. Helped elect them. Let's get this done. Let's get him out. It'll make everyone better for it. And I'm tired of living under the yoke of McCann. I'm tired of having to consider selling my home and moving out of Lorain because of McCann. I'm tired of being afraid to leave my house because of McCann. Makes me feel more like McCann. I'm McCann leave my house. I'm McCann do anything I want to do. I'm McCann look over my shoulder. I McCann have people that he's friendly with coming at me. I McCann have his sister, his son on my page harassing me. But hey, that's all gravy, right? All you guys cool with that? See, it doesn't look pretty on the other side. And everyone, like, those who won't be mentioned anymore, that want to come out and say I'm doing all this stuff and saying all these things. I haven't even done anything yet. I've just had some conversations and asked some questions. I have done the investigations. I have done the digs. I'm scratching at the one that I want done here, and I'm dealing with the ethics complaint with Radif and Baez. And then after that, I've got a bunch more that I've got to write. Once I show them that the first one's correct, everyone else gets to go with them. You guys have been bad people in government. And the piper's coming. As Nikki said the other day in her post, like, she was talking about that too. Like, you know, you reap what you sow. And you're going to get some dirt on your hands. You know, that's all I know about this idea, is that, you know, what we've got going on in the grand scheme of things is not okay. And I tried doing it the soft social worker way. I tried being nice. I tried doing everything I could. And all I got for my troubles was, you know, run out of being able to work and crap done. In the end, it drove me more towards my, you know, my VA stuff. And I get it. But, you know, this last one really, really hurt me because it hurt my clients. And, you know, why? I get it. You guys are scared. I'd be scared too. I'd be really scared if I was you, because I'm bringing it, and I'm not, you know, doing whatever it is that people like She Who Won't Be Mentioned want to say. Even though I'm trying to get them to realize that she reported that I was committing a felony by having someone felony stalk her. She reported that online publicly to Mr. Bober, who's a law enforcement officer. Now, did he act on that as he's required to do by law and make a report that she said that? So if I'm messaging someone and asking them to respond to that and they say, well, that's a civil matter. Well, no, it's not. It is if I want to sue them. It's criminal in the fact that she's making claims that I'm doing things of a felonious nature to a law enforcement officer publicly online. So that's the one. So that's the problem that we're running into, is that you guys are all playing a dangerous game. Mr. Bober played that game with Jack Hall, and he played that game poorly, and now he's doing it with me, as some others are. I mean, I get it. I'm catching a lot of the grief from my you know, my support of who I supported during that election, and that's fine. But that being said, I, on the other hand, I can take that. I can take it from you if that's what you need to do. But I did what I thought was right in those elections, and I didn't go out of my way to attack anyone at their jobs or any of that stuff. Never did that. So this is completely different. I will leave you with this final thought as we get to the end of our hour. I'm not a huge religious person, even though I own Bibles and read them and do what I do. Psalm 23, 5, 6. And it just says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup runneth over, or my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I like the first part. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Yes, I interpret that this way. The Lord has giveth me a table, and he has prepared it. And my enemies, as they sit down to dine, will be right there for my taking. Or we can look at it the other way. The table and the food is my enemies, and Daddy's about to eat them up, and he's hungry. Either way, I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight to Lorain City Politics Unplugged. You know, and I appreciate you guys watching. For those that'll watch later online, I appreciate you. I know this one's rather personal. It was about what happened to me with McCann, but I really wanted to get this out there in a more podcast format as opposed to just me reading the reports to you guys, kind of just giving you an idea, a little background of why I'm so butthurt about all of this, as a lot of people like to say. And yeah, out of all of it, I am a little butthurt about this, because each step of the way, I just feel like it's shaped and or ruined my view of social work and working with the government with social work. And that's not fair to me or the people I could have helped. Like, this is seriously trauma forming BS. And it doesn't just affect me, it affects the community. Now I have a beef with Kaza in Lorain. Think about that. Like, these are problems that you could easily fix with apologies. Anyway, thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. You make it a wonderful evening. Be lawful, not awful, law enforcement.